We're continuing our series working through what I believe, that's pretty subjective, are the most important stories in the Bible, cover to cover. We are now at the fall, which is Genesis chapter 3, which is extremely important, extremely important. I'll read through it, just make a few points. Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. Now we know, because we have studied the Bible, and we've actually even talked about this in the Mormonism track, part 2, about how Lucifer became Satan. So Lucifer was a fallen angel, and he tried to make himself equal with God, and he was basically kicked out from heaven. And he became Satan. The word Satan literally means the accuser. So as Christians, Satan accuses us. If we are bought by Christ's blood, then his accusations fail, because we trade all of our bad stuff to Christ for all of his good stuff, and his accusations will not work with us, all right? But this is the luxury of having read the rest of the Bible and not just starting off in Genesis 1. Now, most Christians believe, is turning up right here as the serpent. So that's a little bit of background. This is not just your regular snake, your run-of-the-mill snake. This is Satan. This is the deceiver. Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" So this is one of his tricks that he uses all of the time. Did God really say that you can't have sex outside of marriage? Did God really say that you can't take something that is not yours? Did God really say that you can't murder somebody? What if they need to be murdered? That's his trick. No matter what issue we deal with, whether it's whatever it is, substance, drugs, whatever, did God really say that? Did he really say that's off limits? So Satan is using that trick from the very beginning. Verse 2, the woman said to the serpent, "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say, you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die." Well, in the woman's defense, she probably has some good advice about not touching it, but God didn't say you can't touch it. And this kind of goes to the point that she's already getting rattled. You know, when the accuser comes, when the tempter comes, he wants to rattle us and make us think that God's laws are not definite. And then when we start questioning them, we start getting rattled, and then we start getting confused as to what his laws even are, you see? And that's what's happening here. We've all been there. All of us have been there one way or another. Verse 4, "You will not certainly die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Here he lowers the boom. He sets the hook. You won't die. In other words, he calls God a liar. Anytime our culture takes something that God has clearly said and says back to us what God said is a lie, that's Satan's first trick, that God is a liar. He doesn't want the best for you. He has all these rules because he doesn't want you to have fun. That's his game. That's his MO. That's his game plan. When the reality is, he only had one rule. He only had one rule, and that rule was there so that they would have fun. It was God's idea to have fun from the very beginning. He created sex in the garden for a good thing. He created work for a good thing. All of the things that Satan wants to twist and turn and now end up getting to become bad because of they're against God's laws. All right. And the other thing that he does here, he says, "For God knows when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God." Well, how did Satan get cast from heaven? This very same sin. He tried to be like God in a bad way. There's being like God in a good way, and there's being like God in a bad way. And he was trying to be like God in a bad way, in that he was trying to steal God's glory, get God's praise. That's always wrong. That's pride. C.S. Lewis calls pride the great sin. He says that all other sins stem from pride. All other sins stem from pride. Think about the presidents who have fallen. Why did they fall, a lot of them? Because they thought they were so powerful that's pride, right? I am so great, I am so powerful that the rules don't apply to me. And that's a bad way of trying to be like God, that I am so elevated. The good way of trying to be like God is to be like Jesus, to be humble. It's just the opposite, right? But he's trying to get humanity to fall for the very same sin that he did, and he succeeds. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some of it and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her. So there's all indication that, Adam was hearing the same sales pitch and falling for it. It's not just the woman, right? He's there too. He's guilty too. And he ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked, so they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. Before, they were naked and unashamed in chapter 2. So we already see, like, whenever I've done anything wrong, I don't care how old I am, I always try to hide it, right? It's like, oh crap, how can I put a spin on this? Even with like my wife, if I spend some money I shouldn't have spent, how can I put a spin on this? I'm hiding. It's just human nature, right? I'm sewing fig leaves and covering myself up. Then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and they hid from the Lord God among the trees. But the Lord God called to the man, "Where are you?" Now you think God doesn't know where he is? I mean, this is what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, this is that kind of language, where basically the writer is putting things. It's baby talk. He's putting us. You ever notice how your words change when you talk to like when I talk to my granddaughter, my complete demeanor and everything changes from the way I talk to you all, right? I talk to her, down to her in a really good, loving way, right? And that's what God is doing in the garden, talking down to them in a good, loving way, even when they had done wrong. Where are you? He knows where they are. He answered, I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. And he said, who told you that you were naked? Leading them right into it, like a good prosecuting attorney, right? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from? Sounds like something I would do with my kids when they were toddlers. Have you gotten into that, what I told you not to? I know they have. There's evidence everywhere, right? The man said, the woman you put here with me, she gave me the fruit from the tree and I ate it. Oh, now that's the blame game, right? And one of the things in any kind of 12-step program is, quit blaming others. Own it. Get to the truth, because if we don't get to the truth, we can't deal with the problem. But in chapter 2, when God created the woman, man was all for it. She was beautiful. Chapter 3, now he's using her as an excuse for what he did wrong. The woman you put here with me, she gave some fruit from the tree and I ate it. Then the Lord God said to the woman, what is this you have done? The woman said, the serpent deceived me and I ate it. So she understands the blame game too. Everything's broken. Now we're blaming God, blaming others. So the Lord God said to the serpent, and he goes on to what he's going to do to the serpent. We're going to skip that. To the woman he said, I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. So these are the consequences of the brokenness of the fall, right? Now, does this mean that we should not try to fight against this? Does this mean that you should only have natural childbirth, right? And try to make it as painful as possible because after all, God said this is the consequence? Or does this mean like as a husband, I'm supposed to rule over my wife and abuse her? Of course not. The whole New Testament is how to work against the consequences of sin, to be like Jesus and to try to reverse it. But no matter how much we try, we still live in an evil, broken world. And so, yes, am I going to be a nervous wreck whenever my daughter is expecting a child and she has to go through childbirth? Was I a nervous wreck when my daughter-in-law had to give birth and what the pain she was going through, or the mother of my children, my first? Of course, I was terrified. I was terrified something bad was going to happen. That's part of the consequences of the fall. And to Adam, he said, because you listened to your wife and ate fruit from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat food from it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you will return. Has anybody ever felt this when you're working the SEC tournament? How many hours this week? 60 hours this week. I have no choice. I have to. 70 hours. Or Luke, coming off the night shift, I haven't slept for so many days very well. I've got to go to work again. Or any of the summer jobs that you guys have had where you're working out in the heat with the asphalt or collecting garbage. Or I remember one of my first jobs before I turned 16 was cleaning pig pens. And I mean, my skin used to smell like pigs even after I take a shower. And I'd be out there so hot and everything. Well, we've all experienced this. You just work and you set the alarm and you got to go to work and you work and you work. And then guess what? You die. Your body doesn't work anymore very well. To dust you go. This is life, right? This is the consequences of the sin, right? And we all experience it, not just the woman, not just the man. Adam named his wife Eve because she would become the mother of all the living. And the Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. And the Lord said, the man has now become like one of us. There's a little bit of a pointing to the Trinity there. We've talked about the Trinity in other studies. Knowing God and evil, he must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. So the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had been taken. After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life. No, we don't know where the Garden of Eden is, by the way. We don't know where it is. But what we do know, remember my promise from the very beginning, is always to try to bring this back to Jesus. Because if I haven't brought it back to Jesus, I haven't done my job. It's interesting. God made them clothes for them. So even in their sin, he is reaching out in goodness and love and graciousness to them. And he made clothes for them to cover them, to protect them. And guess what? Jesus hung on the cross. Many scholars believe that the Romans would crucify their victims and leave them naked for the shame that they would have to experience up there. I mean, it's one thing to be, the Nazis did the same kind of thing. They would strip their prisoners and make them be naked to shame them. So God here is giving us a hint that the story's not over by giving them clothes. And we have read the New Testament, we realize that the greatest hint from this story is pointing to Jesus, who hung on the cross and became naked for us. He bore our shame so that he became like a sin magnet. Paul said, he took all of our bad stuff on him and traded all of his good stuff. For God made him who knew no sin to be sin, so that we might become the righteousness of God. And this story begins to point to that. If we yearn and we focus and we try to see it, we can start to see Jesus. And the story is not over, it has just begun.